Hi, I'm Don Moores, moderator of this forum of the Democratic candidates for the District 5 County Council seat. Christopher Barclay, Evan Glass, Tom Hucker, Terrill North, and Jeffrey Thames. This forum is hosted by Montgomery Community Media and sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County. Lena Barnes, president of the League, is here today to serve as timekeeper. I want to thank everyone here at Channel 21 and at the League for all the hard work that went into coordinating this forum. I also want to thank the candidates for sharing their time with us. Participating in forums like this is important to give voters the information they need in order to make informed choices. We plan on having a lively exchange of views today with the candidates, who will each give an opening statement, followed by questions where I might ask a follow-up, and then their closing statements. The questions were prepared by the League. The candidates are seated in alphabetical order. The order of the opening and closing statements was determined by a random drawing prior to this taping. With that said, let's start this forum. With the opening statement, first up is Tom Hucker. Please, Mr. Hucker.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Lena, and thanks to all the members of the League of Women Voters. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Hucker. I represent Silver Spring and Tacoma Park in the Maryland General Assembly. I live in Silver Spring with my wife and two sons, who give me a daily reminder of what a clear personal stake I have in how strong our public schools and services and colleges will be for the next 20 years. I'm a trained professional activist by training. I received wonderful training and have years of experience building coalitions and working in the science of bringing people together to make government do what people want and what it wasn't doing without that intervention. Think about it. That's a great set of skills for an individual elected official to have. I have been elected twice to represent Silver Spring and Tacoma Park in the Maryland General Assembly, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish during this historic period in Annapolis. We passed marriage equality, of course. We passed the DREAM Act to make sure every Maryland student can attend Maryland College. We repealed the death penalty, and we passed one of the toughest gun safety laws in the country. I was proud to be a lead co-sponsor of each of those bills. Very proud of my individual record as well, passing the only state living wage law in the country to make sure our neighbors that work on state contracts are being paid enough to feed their families without public assistance. I passed groundbreaking public health legislation getting arsenic out of chicken products and taking on the Eastern Shore poultry industry. And I passed 4 bills to expand pre-kindergarten, the last of which expanded won a federal grant of $50 million to expand pre-kindergarten in Maryland to tens of thousands of qualified children. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in the environmental movement and 7 years building up progressive Maryland. Why is this relevant? Because the job of the council member is to represent a district and to pass legislation. What matters is who here today has the real permanent accomplishments to demonstrate that they will succeed in a legislative job on the county council. I'm the one who brings the most experience and the strongest relationships to be an effective progressive leader representing our district on the county council on day one. That's why I asked for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Barclay, you're up next.
Thank you, Don. My name is Chris Barclay. I'm a candidate for County Council here in District 5. Why am I running for County Council? I've been a member of the Board of Education for the last 7 years. I'm running for County Council because I'm really concerned about economic inequality. I'm concerned about families that struggle to feed themselves, families that struggle to put food on the table, to find jobs, to make sure that their children have a quality education. I am a bread and butter candidate. I'm the person that's been in the vineyards, if you will, who's been in our schools and been in our communities, really speaking to families, understanding what's going on with families and the issues that need to be addressed. I've been working on the achievement gap for the last 8 years. It is a pernicious problem that our community needs to address. What I found, though, is to deal with the achievement gap, we've got to deal with jobs. We've got to deal with job creation in our community. District 5 is a wonderful district. We have the tale of 2 districts, though. If you look in the Tacoma Park area, the Silver Spring area, you have a lot of development, you have growth. But if you go to Colesville, you go to Burtonsville, you go to other areas in the district, we don't see those same pieces of growth. We don't see those same amenities. We need to make sure that we have a council member who's going to fight for all of District 5. I don't have my feet planted in Annapolis or in Washington, D.C. My feet are firmly planted in District 5 in Montgomery County. And for the last 7 years, I have been working on critical issues to help make sure that families can find jobs, families can have quality transportation, affordable housing. And I believe if I'm elected as your council member in June 24th, I will do a fantastic job of representing all of Montgomery County and bringing to District 5 what is needed for us to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Barclay. Mr. North?
Aye. Thank you for caring about your community enough to watch this debate. As a congressional staffer, I drafted over 22 pieces of legislation, most important of which is probably ethics reform passed in the wake of the Jack Abramoff scandal. And Jack Abramoff is actually a resident of District 5, so I need to get some more votes to make up for his vote, which I know I've lost. But I've brought those skills home. It's not just about passing bills, it's about what the work that you've done in the community. And in the community today, I run 2 youth programs working with over 550 at-risk youth. In addition to that, I've worked with the ACLU of Maryland as its vice president for the past several years, working to change school discipline regulations across the state so that we'll be able to reduce the number of suspensions. Right now in Montgomery County, a black kid is 5 times more likely to be suspended from school, and a Latino kid is twice as likely to be suspended from school as a white kid. Now we'll have the chances to have a little bit of more parity of that because of our work. I've also brought that work home by working with environmental groups in the local community. Brought over $1 million in stormwater runoff mitigation funds to Silver Spring, to District 5. So it's not just about legislation, but it's also about the community, and it's also about knowing the value of hard work. Because I'm not supposed to be here. I went to a high school, the Johns Hopkins University, labeled as a dropout factory. But with a lot of help from family, friends, a lot of pressure from my mother, I was able to get a scholarship to Howard University and Columbia Law School, and then work my way to this stage to try to represent you now. So if you vote for Terrill North on June 24th, you're going to get someone with legislative experience, someone with community experience, and someone who's ready to work hard for you and listen to you and get your needs taken care of. Please vote for Terrill North on June 24th.
Thank you, Mr. North. Mr. Thames?
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Thames, and I am the candidate for positive change. I'm also the candidate with a new voice and new energy for Montgomery County. I want to represent you as your District 5 representative because I care about you. As a community leader, a community activist, and director of a nonprofit organization that I founded called Hope Restored, I have worked tirelessly in the community with the homeless that we have in District 5, also in areas pertaining to reentry in District 5, both military and incarceration. I have been successful in housing individuals in the homeless community as well as reentering. I have been successful in getting jobs for these individuals also. So in District 5, we have a very special moment in time where we're able to come together as a community and really show the country what a community can actually do for the residents when we come together. I want to be the one that brings us together. I've worked with the 100,000 Homes campaign in Montgomery County under the direction of George Leventhal and many others. I've also worked with the Pre-Release and Reentry Center in Rockville, but we have more work to do. I will bring jobs. I've been called a Maven networker because of my unique ability to bring people to the table that generally would not imagine being at the table at the same time discussing a common issue. I have the ability to generate the funding that we need for infrastructure development, humanitarian projects, and just overall economic development structures that we need going forward. The skill set that I developed as a broker and a networker from Atlanta, then moving here, is what I will bring. And I'm also the PTA president of 2 elementary schools, Cresthaven Elementary School as well as Roscoe Nix Elementary School. I've had mentoring programs at Francis Scott Key as well as Springbrook. And I'm the father of 5 and the husband of a wife of 14 years. And when you elect me, you'll get all of our support as we support you.
Thank you, Mr. Thames. Mr. Glass?
Thank you, Don, and thank you at home for watching. My name is Evan Glass, and I am running for the County Council because you deserved an experienced local leader to represent you in Rockville. I am chair of the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board, and I've served on that board for the last 7 years, and for the last 2 I've been chair. Being appointed by the county executive and approved by the county council, I've been providing management and guidance on how Silver Spring and Montgomery County moves forward. I've helped pass tree bills in Montgomery County where developers, when they extract one tree, they have to replace it with 3. I've worked with our police department and our state's attorneys to make sure that crime-ridden motels in downtown Silver Spring are not nuisances to the community and most certainly not nuisances to other people. And I have the experience that we need to move our community forward. When we're talking about issues about transparency and about oversight in government, I used to be a CNN journalist, and what I've done is ask the tough questions. There are a lot of things that are problematic in our local government, and we need somebody who's an independent, progressive voice to stand up for the residents to get things done. Over the years, I've been working with civic leaders, nonprofit leaders, and business leaders to help bring economic development to downtown Silver Spring and to other parts of Montgomery County. That collaboration, those team building skills is what we need, because up in Rockville, we have 9 members of the council who rarely get along with each other. They don't get along with our county executive, they don't get along with our Board of Education, and they don't get along with our state delegation. Playing musical chairs in this election is not going to work. You need experienced local leadership, and I ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. All right, first question. Mr. Glass, you remain up. First question addresses business climate. There is much talk that Maryland has a bad business climate. What specific actions can the Montgomery County Council take to make Montgomery County the place to bring a business to?
Well, thank you for that question, Don. I have produced a plan to help encourage economic development here in Montgomery County. I encourage you to go to my website, evanglass.com, to take a deeper dive on it. But the problem, as I see it, is we have a Department of Economic Development that does not help our small businesses, despite the fact that 96% of businesses in Montgomery County are small businesses with fewer than 50 employees. So I've put a proposal together to help break down some of those walls. When our economic development gives millions of dollars to international or national corporations to come to Montgomery County, I want them to spend 10% of that taxpayer money on our small businesses, hiring accountants, hiring law firms, hiring some furniture dealers so that they can help supply our local business with some taxpayer funds. I also have ideas to reform our liquor laws, which will help our small businesses, our restaurants and small businesses grow, because they've been telling me they will not operate in our county anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. Mr. Thames, you're next.
First and foremost, we can create a vehicle, a platform for individuals with minor criminal misdemeanor convictions to begin working in Montgomery County. We can attract businesses by having a viable pool of workforce that we can create if we were to work together as a council and create the legislation that's needed. The legislation has been proposed at the state level, however, it has failed numerous times. But I believe that if we in Montgomery County set the stage and the standard for this type of legislation, it will show that it is a viable plan, it is a viable model that will work and will put people back to work. And also in the business district downtown Silver Spring, I would like to see the ability to have small businesses have the ability to validate parking for their customers, as well as some type of employee parking at some of the county-owned parking decks. That's often a problem when an hourly worker comes out to ticket once or twice a week. That will totally ruin their month. We want to do something about those.
Thank you. Mr. Hucker?
Thank you, Don. This is a perennial question, and part of the answer is that we really need to reflect on and capitalize on Maryland's and Montgomery County's assets and stop trying to be Virginia and stop trying to be the District of Columbia. They have assets, that come with every state. We spent a lot of time worrying about whether Northrop Grumman would go to Virginia or Maryland when they obviously wanted to be closer to the Pentagon. When I worked on an IT team at the Consumer Product Safety Commission in Bethesda, everybody on the team lived in Virginia because they wanted to be so close to their other consulting jobs in DC. We're never going to have those assets. What we do have are the best schools, the best transportation system, the best communities of any area in our region. We need to take advantage of state grants and loans that we don't apply for from Montgomery County. We need to build up our renewable energy and other homegrown industries like that, and we need to speed up our permitting process, which is a constant perennial problem with small businesses in Montgomery County.
Thank you. Mr. North.
Well, I work in the private sector now, advising businesses and the government, and I've advised over 300 businesses over the course of my career. And I think a big part of what business is looking for is streamlining of regulations. Massachusetts enacted something that I think we can do right here in Montgomery County. They formed a commission about 3 years ago to look at business regulations, and after their initial 6-month review, they decided to either amend or cancel 41 different regulations. I want to establish a similar commission in the county so that we can bring in small business leaders and bring in residents to just talk about what we can do to support our businesses better by having a better, more business-friendly permitting environment. Beyond that, I think that we need to leverage the FDA and the NIH centers that we have here, because that's, help, like Virginia has defense, Montgomery County has healthcare, and that's the way that our future for business.
Thank you. Mr. Barclay.
You are so right that the business environment in Montgomery County is not friendly. What we need to be looking at as a council is we need to be looking at how do we make the regulatory environment much more consistent. One of the things is I worked for 15 years at MCI and then at Verizon, and we constantly talked about time being money. And the other thing we talked a lot about are what are the regulations in the business, in that business world, in the telecom market. Here in Montgomery County, we don't have consistent regulations. We need to really look at our regulations and make sure that they are consistent so that we can grow businesses in the area. One thing to look at is to look at how long it takes for a business to get started. We need to make sure that if somebody wants to come into business, a small business in Montgomery County, they can do that in a timely manner. The way the council can help specifically is to put pressure on parks and planning and permitting services to make sure that they can become much more efficient and truly work for the citizens of the county.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Thames, you're going to get the first opportunity to answer this. Deals with the energy tax. The current county council just decreased the energy tax. Would you support or decreasing or eliminating this tax altogether? And how would you make up for lost revenue? No need to take the full minute unless you want to with this energy question.
With the energy tax, I must admit that I'm not as versed as my other opponents may be on it. However, I do believe in everyone having their fair share when it comes to supporting the county. So whatever we need to do to make sure that the large and small businesses and the dramatic users are held accountable and that they are paying their fair share of what is due of them. But we don't want to become a place where we run individuals off because we try to get all of our taxes from one source. If we expand the tax base, it would reduce the amount of taxes that each of us would have to pay into it, including businesses. If we give more people the opportunity to work, it would alleviate a lot of the budget shortfalls that we have, thereby making it a climate that we will not have to depend on one particular tax that is such a point of contention in the county. So I believe that if we spread out the wealth, if we spread out the responsibility, we can do away with some of the taxes.
Mr. North.
I do believe that we need the energy tax was supposed to be temporary in the first place, so I do believe that we need to reduce it, and I support the 7% reduction that council has voted for. I think the way that we make up for lost revenue is by attracting more business. We just got through talking about this. I think that if we focus on our healthcare industries, we need to go out and aggressively bring in more healthcare companies. We have Washington Adventist University building a new health sciences school. We have the Life Sciences Center coming to White Oak. We have the things in District 5 right now that will attract other businesses. We need to just leverage them better.
Mr. Glass?
I think the 7% reduction was a fair compromise in this fiscal climate, but the point is the council and the county government pledged that it would be sunsetted after 2 years, and they've broken their promise. And the people that are affected most by this energy tax are our small businesses. So when we talk about economic growth, when we talk about the need to really help the 96% of the businesses here in Montgomery County, the energy tax is one of the biggest inhibitors to their growth. So when we try to figure out how we will pay for the reduction in income revenue, The answer is simple: letting small businesses do their job.
Mr. Barclay.
So the answer is yes. Reducing the energy tax would be important. I think it's a great thing to do. That would be a great incentive. But the other side of it, and I think all of my colleagues have said this, we have got to create the environment where small businesses can grow in Montgomery County. We've got to increase the tax base. We cannot be looking at ways to put new fees either on businesses or on individual homeowners. That is not going to be the way. The way to deal with this, to get more revenue into our economy, is to open up the environment so that we can see more businesses growing in Montgomery County. Part of the way of doing that is to relax some of the regulatory rules, some of the rules that we have that really impede businesses opening quickly. Again, time is money. That's the issue. How quickly can businesses open, and how efficiently will they be able to do their work?
Mr. Hucker?
Thanks, Don. Yes, I agree. The energy tax was intended to be temporary. It was promised to be temporary. We should figure out how to responsibly phase it out and keep that promise. Where do we save the money? We save the money. There's so much waste in our county government as well as nearly every government in America. There's a fair amount of duplication because we really haven't reformed it as the county has grown dramatically and changed. We don't do performance reviews of many departments. We have a county stat program that's modeled on the successful state stat program that gives us data-driven assessments of each department, but it's not tied to the budget. So the outcomes that it provides don't result in any budget cuts. We also need to respect our employee input. We had employees that told us not to buy ride-on buses that were remodeled trucks with truck chassis and engines. Instead, they didn't listen and they ended up catching on fire. We waste a lot of money on procurement that we don't need to waste. Thank you.
Do a follow-up to this, because we're talking about money going in with the energy tax and resources and budget. So this is a 30-second answer for each of you. Mr. North, you're going to have the first with this. With some specificity, please provide us with one area that you would cut in the budget, one area where we are not spending enough money that you would want to add to the county budget.
Well, I don't think we're spending enough money on after-school programs. I want to borrow from what's been going on successfully in New York, where there's a focus on to help the kids to close the achievement gap on funding pre-K and after-school programs so that we can extend the learning day for the kids who need it. In terms of what needs to be cut, that's a tough question because we've cut quite a bit over the past several years in the county. So I'd have to really study that one a little bit more before I can give you a specific answer.
Mr. Hucker?
I'd look at duplication. We have county agencies which each have their own public information office. There's really no need for that. I would expand pre-kindergarten. I'd absolutely expand the child care subsidy program. When you expand child care subsidies, you really can create two jobs. You allow a parent to go who's home caring for a child to go back to work, and you create a job for the child care provider. So that's really an economic driver as well.
Mr. Barclay?
I think the area where I would like to see significant increases is in workforce development. I think it would be great to commit much more to, in coordination with the school system, the college, and really using assets. One great thing would be for us to be able to use our high schools and our middle schools after hours to have our immigrant families be able to learn English there in the media centers. That would be a great thing for us to do. I think an area that we probably need to cut, and I agree with Mr. Hucker on this one, duplication of services. We've got to look at areas where we're duplicating services.
Thank you. Mr. Glass?
Over the last recession, our libraries and recreation department was cut nearly 30%. So that is top of my list to restore those fundings, because that really does help our communities, helps with children and after-school programs, and they are due to be restored. As for being mindful of where that money comes from, quite frankly, we need to be more respectful and be more in tune to future growth in the county budget. So as we look at forecasts, I think we need to keep a conservative eye and make sure that we limit some of that growth.
Mr. Thames?
As a father of 5 children and a husband, I can honestly say that I believe an area that can stand to be cut is council member salaries. $140,000 is a lot of money to pay one individual to do a job that we all love to do. And the area where I can see increasing funding would be definitely homeless prevention and intervention support. We definitely do not have enough resources for our homeless community to partake in and benefit from.
Thank you. Mr. Barclay, you're going to be leading off the next set of answers to this question. The Washington Post often writes editorials about Montgomery County and its unions. And the Post implies that unions actually control the county. How would you respond to the Post about how unions work in Montgomery County?
Well, I think that we have two different stories there. I think if you look at our unions in the school system, if you look at MCEA, MCAP, and SEIU, they have a very strong and cooperative relationship with the school system. As a member of the school board, I've been in national conferences on labor management, really talking about that cooperation, how we work together and do things well. That's where I would disagree with the Washington Post. It's not a matter of control, it's a matter of us working together. When it comes to fire, police, and our county unions, McGeo, you don't see the same kind of cooperation, you don't see the same ability of folks working together and really looking at interest-based bargaining. That's what really makes the difference. That's what the schools have been able to do, and that's why they've had so much success.
All right, Mr. Glass?
Yeah, so many people move to Montgomery County because of our quality of life, and that quality of life is largely impacted by our wonderful county employees and the services they provide. But what differentiates me from the rest of the individuals running for the seat is I was the only person here who said that I would not revert back to the effects bargaining that the police union had here in Montgomery County. I agree with Councilmember Mark Elrich when he said that 60% of Montgomery County voters voted to uphold the decision of a unanimous council and of the county executive to allow our police officers and their commanders to effectively serve our communities. And to protect our communities, they asked for certain levels of bargaining, and I have pledged to allow our police officers and our police department commanders to do their job to keep us safe.
Mr. Thames, you're next.
As the election process and the campaign process kicked off, I was surprised, overwhelmingly surprised, to see the amount of questionnaires coming from different unions and special interest groups. And I was baffled as to why I did not receive a single questionnaire from a voter wanting to know how I would support them. So I would have to really take a 30,000-foot view and say that a lot of what is going on behind the scenes is controlled by special interest groups. And in private conversations, I've been told that if you don't go with what they want, you will go where they want you to go, which is out. And so I will be able to work with the voters and let the unions know that I value the importance of sticking together, but at the end of the day, we have to do what's in the best interest of the residents of our county and our community, and that is go with what works.
Mr. Hucker?
Obviously, unions don't control the county, since the county council voted unanimously to break contracts and scale back collective bargaining. So that's kind of a silly premise. Let's not talk about unions. Let's talk about the employees that work for the county. That's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about teachers or social workers or nurses or bus drivers. They're the folks that are on the ground every day, providing key services to our constituents and seeing up close how our tax dollars are spent. So the real key is that we need a collaborative atmosphere where we're working with them to get them to feel comfortable pointing out waste and fraud and abuse, feeling like they're part of the solution, feeling like they won't get any retaliation if they point out problems with our tax base. And I think we ought to be creating an app so that they can report from their smartphones any evidence of waste and fraud and abuse that they see every day. That's really the way to bring back grassroots feedback to cut the budget.
Thank you. Mr. North?
Well, unions gave America the weekend, so I do love the unions, but right now in Montgomery County, there is a lot of overreach. I mean, if you also read the Post, you'll hear stories on a regular basis about candidates, elected officials right now who are afraid they're not going to be elected because of their loss of union support. So I think the real answer to dealing with the unions, to give them the proper amount of influence that they should have, is public finance of local elections. As a congressional staffer, I wrote more than 3 different bills to focus on public finance of elections, and I think that Phil Andrews' proposal to bring public finance to Montgomery County is the best way to make sure, because unions aren't the only special interests here. There are developers that also act, there are all kinds of groups that act as special interests here. What we need is a way to make sure that the most important interests are the people. And that will be happening if the people pay for the elections.
Well, the people are waiting for something to be finally constructed in the middle of Silver Spring. Mr. Hucker, you get this question. The Silver Spring Transit Center. What actions should the county take in regards to what has been largely seen as a total disaster for the Silver Spring Transit Center?
Not unfairly seen as a total disaster, Don. If you, it's like every day there's more bad news that comes out, and the latest was the Inspector General report that showed that the problems with the transit center, many of them were known early and were ignored. It also pointed out that 2 years went by while most of the construction was completed before Parsons Brinkerhoff was hired to do their top to bottom review. This is really, there's a lot of damage that's been done, and it can't necessarily be undone. What we do need to know and to have in the future is much stronger council oversight. That wouldn't happen when I'm on the council, because we're going to have much more council involvement in large procurement projects like that. The council can't do it alone. They need to be able to hire independent construction managers to oversee projects like that. Instead, they hired Parsons Brinkerhoff, the very engineers that designed the center. I work to do independent review of contracting for the federal government. That's a really key role, to advise government employees in what contractors are not doing their job and how problems can be fixed.
Okay.
That's it.
Mr. North?
Well, I think the stronger oversight is the first part of the answer. We need people that are going to be there to ask the tough questions. That's something I have a history of doing. But going beyond that, we also need to look at changing the structure. We need to look at how we can inject more competition into the process. In my day job, currently I'm advising the federal government on how it can create more competition in building certain, like green shipbuilding, for example. And the way that the federal government has done that is by having different companies build different parts of a project. So it splits up the work. It creates more jobs, but it also allows for more competition. So the companies aren't as cozy with the government as the current contractors we have working in Montgomery County. We inject more competition into the system. That will make the companies police themselves a little bit more, and then that will also support council providing more oversight.
Mr. Barclay?
I was a project manager in telecom, and when I started looking at the transit center, I got really nervous. I think the issue with the transit center and the lessons that are learned is that the council has to do a great deal of oversight, and they have to take responsibility for doing that oversight. Part of that means that there have to be regular reviews. It also means that we have to look at not just reviewing the project, but the processes that are used for the project. What was the procurement process? How were contractors identified? What was the criteria that was used? Also, what were the plans that were used? I think we have to review the process and make sure that if we're going to get involved in large projects like this again, that we have the oversight to make sure that they do not turn into the debacle that the transit center is now.
Thank you. Mr. Thames?
If we can let the record show, if you rewind back, my colleague did say green ship building, and not what it sounded like. But what I would like to do is, first and foremost, on the transit center, remove Mr. Sarbanes' name. I would like to either remove it or cover it up until we have figured out what we will do with the structure, because as I see it now, it is an embarrassment to the family to have his name out front to the visitors that come to Silver Spring wondering what that is and who is it for. But also, I would, like my other colleagues, enforce and support more oversight. But the thing that I'm concerned with is why no one until this point, as they walked back and forth so many times to the transit center and to the metro station, said anything about it. We need to have a responsive representative, someone that will not wait for the other shoe to fall before they react, but instead be preventive in making sure that it doesn't fall on us.
Thank you. Mr. Glass?
What happened at the Silver Spring Transit Center is nothing short of a travesty. It's absolutely awful that this hulking structure is now an albatross around Silver Spring's neck. And what we need, as my friends have said, is we need much more oversight and accountability on the county council. You know, I used to be a CNN journalist. I covered national politics and Congress for CNN. And the legislative body is supposed to do two things. They're supposed to provide a budget and they're supposed to provide oversight. And the fact that we had 5 members of the Montgomery County Council who live within walking distance of that Silver Spring Transit Center, and they only found out about the problems after it was reported in the Washington Post, is another travesty. And so what I pledge to do is use my journalistic skills, my keen sense of oversight, bring it to the county council, and use it to make sure that no public projects fall into the disarray again.
We're running out of time here a little bit. We can try to get some questions. Then we do a quick follow-up, a transportation-related follow-up, and that's with the federal transit projects. Maryland is seeking 3 transit projects, 2 which are in Montgomery County. Conventional wisdom says that we're only going to have one of those 2 that's going to be able to be fully funded. What are the benefits of the 2 projects from Montgomery County? Which one would you vote for? Which one would you support? With some specificity, please. Again, 30 seconds. Mr. Thames?
Purple Line. I'm sorry, Purple Line. The reason why I had the pleasure of riding from Rockville Station, destination Silver Spring, and 2 hours later, I was finally getting off the train, and I said, whatever we need to do to make it happen, let's make it happen now. I have the ability to bring in the additional funding and capital sources that we need to offset any loss that we have, and I pledge to do that once I'm the council representative for District 5. Purple Line now.
Thank you. Mr. Hucker?
Well, we're at different stages in those projects. With the Purple Line, we've already received the federal record of decision, so that's moving ahead. We'll get the federal financing. I've been a very strong supporter of the Purple Line for a very long time. I co-chair the caucus for the Purple Line in the Maryland House of Delegates, and I represent the General Assembly on the board of Purple Line now. I was standing with Governor Glendening 10 years ago when he was announcing a site for it, and then we got nowhere with under Governor Ehrlich. I'm very proud of where it is going, and we're going to have to work hard to minimize the community disruption, but it's going to be a transformative benefit to our district.
Mr. Glass?
We need to make sure the Purple Line is completed, that it's done on budget and on schedule, again, so that we don't have another Silver Spring Transit Center problem. And I've been asked by the county executive to serve on the Purple Line Advisory Group to make sure that it is adhered to and the schedule does move forward. But I also have another take on public transportation. My husband and I only have 1 car for our 2-person household. And so I literally walk the walk when it comes to my commitment for public transportation. And I'm going to make sure that we actually increase all of our public transportation needs.
Ms. Barclay?
The Purple Line is it. We've got to make sure that we have that east-west, west-east thoroughfare. Public transit in Montgomery County needs to improve dramatically. The Purple Line is the issue in terms of the federal project and the state project, but we really need to make sure that we can improve ride-on service and metro service in Montgomery County. I do say transit first. The Purple Line is it.
Mr. North?
I hate to echo everybody, but I guess I have to echo everybody. The Purple Line is the federal project that we need to focus on right now. And I think that'll free us up in terms of using our own local impact fees to focus on things like BRT and improving ride-on service. I mean, my mother-in-law lives in Rockville. I live in Tacoma Park. And that trek on the red line is actually kind of irritating. So I would love for the Purple Line to get done first.
All right, let's go for another 30-second question. Not follow-up, but let's do it. This has to do with the school board and the council. With more than 50% of the county budget going to MCPS, what are your thoughts about the relationship between the council and the board? And first up is Mr. Glass.
As I said in my opening statement, we have 9 members of the council, and 2 of them, or previously before Valerie Irvin resigned, she and Nancy Navarro came from the school board. And we have a council member now, Craig Rice, who used to be in the General Assembly in Annapolis. Relationships have not improved because we've been playing musical chairs. What we need is an outside local leader who understands how the council and the government works to get things done. I've been working with the community and will continue to do so.
Mr. Thames?
I thank God that the council doesn't have a credit card system, because what we need is oversight and making sure that we use our platform for good, not evil. I will help with the school board and from my council position put programs in place that will benefit children and give them a buy-in, which will then reduce the achievement gap by letting them know what the importance of their education that they're receiving currently is, because now they are disconnected from the reality of why they would need it, so that they can have better financial and fiscal responsibility so they won't have to rely on credit cards to live.
Mr. Barclay?
Well, I'm the only person on this panel who's on the school board and is running for the county council. I'm the only person who's been endorsed by 2 standing council members and the previous person that held this seat, Valerie Irvin. So I think one of the issues is the only thing that created the tension between the school board and the county council was the budget, the economic crisis. And the fact of the matter is those relations are getting better, and I have the temperament and the experience to help mend that relationship and build that relationship in a way so that we can work together.
Mr. North?
Listen, the relationship that you have with other politicians is not what's important. It's about our relationship with the communities that we're trying to serve. So as a council member, I pledge to meet with a different school board member every month. But the bottom line of it is, if all of us focus on the communities that we represent as opposed to playing games with each other, suing each other. I mean, that's the type of relationships we've had in the past. Our school board has sued our county council in the past under the leadership of one of the candidates today. So the bottom line has to be focusing on who we represent. We all represent the same neighborhoods. Doing that is what will allow us to get past all these bumps and bruises, bumps in the way.
Mr. Hucker?
There's no question, Don, we need greater oversight of our Board of Education and the school system in general. The recent OLO report called for that, Office of Legislative Oversight, which detailed the devastating growth in our achievement gap in our high schools. And the state needs to play a role in that oversight of the school system as well. We need greater transparency and accountability. They're half our budget, but for some reason we don't have independent audits of the school board the way we do with every other state agency. There's no question the public needs to be able to know where their tax dollars are going, down to the dollar every year. Secondly, we need much more collaboration with stakeholders and treat PTAs like allies, not adversaries. Thank you.
All right, we've got time for one more question. It's going to be 40 seconds. It goes in with the school system. We're the most diverse school system, I believe, in the country. Certainly Montgomery College, most diverse in the country, most successful as well of any community college academically. How should the county government respond to the economic and social needs of our increasingly diverse population in your councilmatic district more than any other place in this county? Mr. Barclay, please.
I think we have to commit to investing in education, but we have to invest in ways that make sense. As I said earlier, one of the things we have to do is we have to respond to the growth in our immigrant population, bringing our immigrant population into our schools. One is a way for economic development, workforce development, helping to get them trained, and also using our schools after hours to make sure that immigrants and families could be trained in English is going to be important because we need to serve our population with all of our community assets. I think our schools are not used effectively after hours. That would be important to help boom the economy.
Thank you. Mr. Hucker?
Well, Don, we need to attack the achievement gap vigorously. We need to do, it's all outlined in the OLO report, much more counseling, much more attention for our at-risk students in our high schools. We need to invest much more in early education for our students entering kindergarten. We also, for everybody else, need to restore the cuts to our libraries, to our parks, to our other public services, especially after-school programs. And finally, I have such a long history of working with our immigrant communities, from 20 years ago working as a community organizer in Silver Spring through representing them in the General Assembly. That's why I've been endorsed by CASA of Maryland, by the Ethiopian American Council, by APA leaders, and by the Hispanic Democratic Club as well, because they know I can work with them in partnership to get things done.
Thank you. Mr. Thames?
It's time to engage in the entire District 5 wholly. That is the way that we will address the economic diversity and the economic gap that we have. When we provide more opportunities, we'll see a decrease in the gaps that exist. So by, again, giving individuals a path to work, by allowing them to work in the face of their misdemeanor convictions, and putting families back together. The minimum wage raise was one great piece, but now we need to accompany it with another piece of legislation that will put individuals with criminal misdemeanor convictions back to work. And also, we need to look out for the most vulnerable in the community and let them know that they are employable.
Mr. North?
Well, I'm the vice president of Impact Silver Spring, which has been working for 12 years in Montgomery County to make it a better, diverse community. We've actually been cited by the Brookings Institution as a best practice nationally for how do you deal with growing suburban diversity, because it's worth short on time, so how we deal with suburban diversity and growing suburban poverty. But the bottom line of what we've heard, we knock on about 10,000 doors a year, and what we've heard from people is they want programs for youth and they want job opportunities. That's why I lead 2 youth programs in the community right now. That is why we have worked at Impact Silver Spring, partnering with Ike Leggett and other community leaders to form the first workforce development program in East County, which launched earlier this year. We're currently working to bring Montgomery College to the East County Services Center so there'll be even more adult education. So it's about listening to these communities and making things happen.
Thank you. Mr. Glass?
In District 5, we love our diversity, and I believe our diversity is our strength. But with diversity comes additional challenges. You know, when a child grows up in a home where there's food insecurity, economic insecurity, and housing insecurity, they're going to have a hard time learning, especially when their parents are traveling far distances for jobs. That's why we need to bring more jobs to our part of the county so that children live in good environments where their parents get paid better and their parents have more time at home with them instead of traveling to other jurisdictions.
That's the last word in the discussions. I'm so impressed. The voters have such a tough time in front of them. We now turn to the closing statements, and again by random selection. We have Mr. North. You're up first.
Sure. Please visit TerrillNorth.com to learn as much as you want about me and what I want to do in this community. Because I want to use my closing to do something a little bit different. I want to talk about an issue that we haven't talked about today, that we don't talk about enough in this community, and that's domestic violence. Right now in this community, 4,000 people are going to be attacked by someone who claims to love them over the course of the next year. Right now in this community, over 90,000 people have been victims of some sort of violence committed by someone who claims to love them, and that has to change. I've done some work with Court Watch Montgomery, and their number one issue is to create supervised visitation centers across a centralized supervised visitation center. And I'd like to create satellite supervised visitation centers that will allow families to still be able to stay together, that will allow the abuser to come into an environment where they're going to be monitored and get the opportunity to get some help, because we don't have enough help for the abusers in this situation. And the other thing is we need to do more lethality assessments. These are 2 pieces of legislation that I'd like to put forth as a council member. The second is lethality assessments, because we lose a lot of people that have been brought in for attacking a member of their household, but then the family gets together temporarily and they're allowed to walk off scot-free. The way we change that is by having a social worker or some other professional, not a member of the family, some other professional do an assessment of the danger that that person poses if they're allowed to be in the house. That way, we can have an independent sort of verification. If a family is getting together, then we have some professional who's made a decision that that person is not going to be a threat to the families. As someone who, you know, my brother, we were talking about our greatest years of our life, what happened to us in 2nd grade. As someone who, my brother actually shot 2 people near my house when I was in 2nd grade, and I remember that day vividly. And the violence that brought into my house changed my life, and it changes the lives of everyone who deals with it. So I want to make sure, and as your councilman, I will be on the front line of making sure that young people that are exposed to violence, that people that are dealing with abusers, especially in their homes, that we will have some sort of systemic way of approaching that problem. Vote for me on the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. North. Mr. Hucker, you're next.
Thank you. I asked for your vote for 3 reasons. First, our district gets shortchanged every single year in the county budget, whether we're talking from Burtonsville all the way down to Tacoma Park. We don't get the funding we deserve, and yet we have more vulnerable populations than any other district in Montgomery County, whether we're talking about our families in poverty, our immigrants, our elderly, our parents of children with special needs. We need an experienced advocate to go to Rockville and bring back all the resources that we deserve. We all pay our taxes. We should be making sure we're not getting shortchanged from Rockville, and it takes somebody experienced with those strong relationships to be able to push back and get that done. Number 2, the council is a legislative body. The job description is to represent a district, persuade the representatives of competing districts to vote for your legislation and pass legislation that benefits the whole county, especially our district. I'm the only one who has worked in a legislative environment like that in an elected capacity and succeeded year after year. If I've been able to pass dozens of difficult bills through a much larger and more complex body in the state assembly, of course I'm going to be able to succeed for this district in Rockville in the county council. And third, the biggest challenges facing our district in the coming years, whether it's minimizing the impact of the purple line or addressing our growing achievement gap or fighting for school construction dollars from Annapolis, They require ongoing partnership and strong relationships with state agencies and lawmakers. There's no time for on-the-job training. It's critical that we elect someone with strong personal relationships with state officials who can get their calls returned and bring state officials to our district to see problems up close and get them solved. Sending a stranger to negotiate with state agencies and cabinet secretaries is not the way to succeed. I bring the most experience and the broadest coalition of supporters into this race. I've been endorsed by over 25 diverse groups, including every environmental group, women's groups, Hispanic and African groups have all coalesced together to support my candidacy. The Washington Post says I have the ability to get things done and to get difficult bills passed. There's a lot at stake for our neighborhoods. This is not an entry-level job. It's about experience. I'll be ready on day one to succeed. Proven progressive leadership and a track record of bringing people together to get results. That's what I offer, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hucker. Mr. Glass.
Don, I want to thank you and the League for having us here today. I'm running because I have 10 years of experience building communities here in Montgomery County and in the 5th District. I've been president of 2 civic associations, I'm chair of the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board, and I've served on nonprofits that have helped keep our community safe, have built affordable housing, and have put together plans to keep our environment safe and flourishing into the future. And my grassroots campaign has scores of civic leaders, nonprofit leaders, and small business leaders who are supporting me. And that's why the Gazette newspaper has endorsed my campaign. There are 2 other elected officials in this race, but they know that I'm the one who's been doing this job for the last 10 years. I'm the local leader on the ground. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter how much money any of these candidates have. It doesn't matter the laundry list of endorsements that any of these candidates has. What matters is your vote. What matters is what we've been doing for you for the last decade. I have a commitment over the last 10 years on the ground, helping our communities flourish, and I pledge and promise to bring that commitment to you when you help me get to Rockville. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. Mr. Barclay.
First of all, thank you for having us, and thank you all for listening and watching. My name's Chris Barclay. I have been representing you for the last 7 years, all of you, because I've been on your school board. I'm asking for your vote to run and be your representative in county council because I've been working on the key issues that make a difference in Montgomery County. I have been working on the issue of the achievement gap. I have been working on trying to provide opportunity for children and families in this county. The opportunity to make sure that the key issues are addressed is something that I can do. Making sure that jobs, education, and transportation are the issues. The reason that I am running is because I am a humble, hands-on person who has done the work all over this county to ensure that families and children are protected. So on June 24th, I'm asking for your vote for County Council in District 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barclay. Mr. Thames, you have the final summing up of this event.
And as a preacher, there's never a microphone nor a mirror that I don't like. So I'll take this opportunity with pleasure. But as a United States Marine, I served my country honorably, and now it's time to come and serve my county honorably as well. I took an oath to protect you from enemies both foreign and domestic. And we're at a time in the county's history, district's history, where we have some domestic enemies that would have you believe that they've had your best interest at heart for the last decade plus. But there's been legislation go unpassed because personal interests were not accomplished or satisfied. I will be the one to care for you and see that you are at the top of my list. When you come to me, you will get the response that you need because I pledge to bring my office to Silver Spring. I will not work in Rockville unless we have meetings that I must attend. My primary office will be in Silver Spring, giving you the opportunity and the ability to come and enter and talk to me whenever it's convenient for you. I will bring jobs. I will strengthen the workforce development that's so often complained about. I will work with the police community to make sure that we all have safe communities and we all have safe neighborhoods. I'll work with the different civic associations that I've had the pleasure and honor to meet to make sure that their answers are given at the table. I believe as your county council representative that it's my job to merely set the table for you to bring forth the proposals that you have for your particular neighborhoods and communities. And with my ability to attract individuals to a room and reach a common goal, I believe that your issues will be handled expeditiously, effectively, and beneficially to your community. I am ready, willing, and able to serve you, and I hope that on June 24th, you'll vote for Jeffrey Thames, number 5 and 5 with 5 children. Thank you, Jeffrey Thames.
Thank you all very much, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Once again, I want to thank the candidates. This forum is just one of the many programs that Montgomery Community Media is hosting with the League to prepare residents of Montgomery County for the upcoming primary election. Go to mymcmedia.org to see the schedule of showings or watch these offerings being streamed also on the website. You can also see them on YouTube. I want to remind you that the primary election this year will occur on Tuesday, June 24th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. You may also vote early starting on Thursday, June 12th at sites around the county. Go to the Board of Elections website for a list of these locations. Voting is a great privilege in this country and in this county. Please use this privilege wisely and come out and vote. On behalf of all of us, I wish you the best. Goodbye for now.